Maria Rodriguez wiped the sweat from her face as she finished cleaning the kitchen counter. She had been working as a maid for Mrs. Chen for 3 years now. The old lady was kind to her, always treating her with respect. This was different from some of her other jobs where people looked down on her. "Maria, dear, could you come here for a moment?" Mrs. Chen called from the living room. Maria walked into the room where Mrs. Chen sat in her favorite chair. The old woman was holding a small cloth bundle in her hands. She looked nervous about something. "I need to ask you a favor," Mrs. Chen said softly. "This belonged to my grandmother. I found it in my attic last week." She unwrapped the cloth carefully. Inside was an old necklace. It looked very old and worn. The stones were dark red, but they seemed dull and lifeless. Maria thought it looked like something from a costume jewelry store. "I want to know if it has any value," Mrs. Chen continued. "My grandmother always said it was special, but I never believed her. Could you take it to a jewelry store for me?" "I would go myself, but my legs are not good anymore." Maria nodded. "Of course, Mrs. Chen. Which store would you like me to visit?" Mrs. Chen handed her a piece of paper with an address written on it. "Prestigious Diamonds and Company. It's downtown. They are supposed to be the best in the city." Maria looked at the address. It was in the fancy part of town where all the expensive stores were. She had never been to that area before. She felt a little nervous about going there. "Are you sure you want me to go there?" Maria asked. "Maybe I should just take it to a regular jewelry store in my neighborhood." Mrs. Chen shook her head. "No, dear. If this necklace is worth something, I want to know from the experts. Please take it there for me." Maria carefully wrapped the necklace back in the cloth. She put it in her purse and made sure the zipper was closed tight. The necklace might not look like much, but Mrs. Chen seemed to think it was important. "When should I go?" Maria asked. "Today, if you can," Mrs. Chen replied. "I will pay you extra for the trip and take the bus fare money from my purse." Maria felt touched by Mrs. Chen's trust. The old woman was giving her what might be valuable jewelry to carry around the city. Not many employers would trust their maid with something like this. "I will take good care of it," Maria promised. After finishing her work, Maria changed out of her cleaning clothes. She put on her best dress, but it was still simple and plain. She did not own fancy clothes like the people who probably shopped in that part of town. Her dress was clean and neat, but anyone could see she was not wealthy. She took 2 buses to get downtown. The ride took almost an hour. As the bus got closer to the fancy district, Maria noticed how different everything looked. The buildings were taller and cleaner. The people walking on the streets wore expensive clothes and carried designer bags. Maria felt out of place as soon as she stepped off the bus. Everyone around her looked rich and important. She checked her purse again to make sure the necklace was still safe inside. She walked slowly down the street, looking for the jewelry store. The shop windows were full of sparkling diamonds and gold. Everything looked so expensive that Maria was afraid to even look at the price tags. Finally, she found Prestigious Diamonds and Company. The storefront was impressive with big glass windows and gold letters. Inside, she could see beautiful displays of jewelry under bright lights. Well-dressed customers were looking at rings and necklaces with the help of salespeople. Maria stood outside for a few minutes, gathering her courage. She felt nervous about going inside. What if they asked her questions she could not answer? What if they thought she was trying to steal something? She thought about Mrs. Chen waiting at home for the answer about her grandmother's necklace. The old woman was counting on her. Maria took a deep breath and pushed open the heavy glass door. The inside of the store was even more impressive than the outside. The floors were made of shiny marble. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Everything sparkled and gleamed under the bright lights. A few customers were in the store, all wearing expensive clothes. The women had perfect hair and makeup. The men wore suits that probably cost more than Maria made in a month. She felt very out of place in her simple dress. Behind the glass counters, salespeople in dark suits helped customers look at jewelry. They spoke in quiet, professional voices. Maria could see rings that probably cost thousands of dollars. She walked slowly toward one of the counters, not sure where to go. A young woman in a black dress looked up at her. The woman's name tag said Jennifer Mills. Jennifer looked Maria up and down, taking in her simple clothes and worn shoes. "Can I help you?" Jennifer asked. Her voice was not friendly. It was the kind of voice people used when they did not really want to help. "Yes," Maria said quietly. "I have a necklace that needs to be looked at. The owner wants to know if it has value." Jennifer's expression became even less friendly. What kind of necklace? Maria opened her purse carefully and took out the cloth bundle. She unwrapped it slowly, revealing the old necklace with its dull red stones. Jennifer barely glanced at it. Where did you get this? It belongs to my employer, Maria explained. It was her grandmother's. She asked me to bring it here for an appraisal. Jennifer looked at the necklace again, but Maria could tell she was not taking it seriously. The saleswoman seemed to have already made up her mind about what she was seeing. I'm sorry, but we don't do appraisals on costume jewelry, Jennifer said coldly. You might want to try a pawn shop instead. Maria felt confused. But Mrs. Chen said her grandmother told her it was special. I'm sure she did, Jennifer replied with a small, mean smile. But this is clearly not real jewelry. The stones are probably glass or plastic. Maria looked down at the necklace. It did not look like much, but Mrs. Chen had seemed so hopeful. Could someone else look at it? Just to be sure. Jennifer sighed as if Maria was bothering her. Ma'am, I can tell fake jewelry when I see it. This is not worth our time. Other customers in the store had started to notice the conversation. Maria felt their eyes on her and her simple clothes. She felt embarrassed and small. Maria stood at the counter holding the necklace in her hands. She could feel the other customers staring at her. Their eyes made her feel small and unwelcome. Jennifer Mills, the saleswoman, looked annoyed that Maria was still there. Please, Maria said quietly. Could you just take a quick look? I promised Mrs. Chen I would try. Jennifer rolled her eyes and called out loudly, Victoria, we have a situation here. A tall woman in an expensive gray suit walked over. Her name tag read Victoria Sterling, manager. She had short blonde hair and cold blue eyes. When she looked at Maria, her face showed disgust. What seems to be the problem? Victoria asked, but she was looking at Maria like she was something dirty. This woman wants us to appraise some fake jewelry, Jennifer explained. I told her we don't do that here. Victoria looked at the necklace in Maria's hands. She did not even touch it. Where did you get this? She asked in a sharp voice. It belongs to my employer, Maria repeated. She asked me to bring it here. Victoria laughed, but it was not a kind laugh. Let me guess. Your employer does not know you took it, does she? Maria felt shocked. No. Mrs. Chen asked me to bring it. She wants to know if it has value. Right, Victoria said, not believing her. And I suppose your employer just happened to trust her maid with valuable jewelry? The way Victoria said the word maid made Maria feel ashamed. There was nothing wrong with being a maid, but Victoria made it sound like something dirty. Mrs. Chen trusts me, Maria said, trying to keep her voice steady. I'm sure she does, Victoria replied with another mean smile. Jennifer, call security. We need to handle this properly. Maria felt panic rising in her chest. Wait, you don't understand. I'm not stealing anything. Mrs. Chen gave me money for the bus. She's waiting for me to come back with information about the necklace. But Victoria was not listening. She had already decided what she thought was happening. Security! She called out loudly. A large man in a uniform came over quickly. His name tag said Robert Security. He looked at Maria with suspicious eyes. Is there a problem here? Robert asked. This woman brought in what appears to be stolen jewelry, Victoria announced loudly. She claims her employer sent her, but we all know that's not true. Maria felt the blood drain from her face. I'm not a thief. Please just call Mrs. Chen. She will tell you the truth. Of course you want us to call someone, Jennifer said. Probably your partner in crime. Other customers had stopped shopping to watch what was happening. Maria could hear them whispering to each other. Some had taken out their phones and were recording everything. She felt humiliated and trapped. Please, Maria begged. Just look at the necklace properly. Mrs. Chen said her grandmother told her it was special. Victoria picked up the necklace with just 2 fingers, like it was garbage. She held it up to the light for just a second. This is clearly costume jewelry. The stones are probably colored glass. No one's grandmother had real rubies that looked like this. Maybe if you used a special tool to look at it, Maria suggested desperately. We don't waste our tools on fake jewelry, Victoria snapped. Robert, please escort this woman out of our store. Robert stepped toward Maria. Ma'am, you need to leave now. But I haven't done anything wrong. Maria protested. You're disturbing our customers, Victoria said coldly. And we don't appreciate people trying to scam us with fake jewelry. Maria looked around the store. Everyone was staring at her. Some customers looked disgusted, like they thought she really was a thief. Others looked uncomfortable but did not say anything to help her. "This is not fair," Maria said, tears starting to form in her eyes. "Life isn't fair," Jennifer said with a cruel smile. "Maybe next time you'll think twice before trying to fool people who know what real jewelry looks like." Robert put his hand on Maria's arm, not roughly, but firmly. "Come on, ma'am. Let's go." Maria pulled her arm away. "Don't touch me. I can walk by myself." She wrapped the necklace back in its cloth and put it carefully in her purse. Her hands were shaking from anger and embarrassment. As she walked toward the door, she could hear Victoria talking loudly to the other customers. "I'm so sorry about that disruption. Some people think they can fool us with fake jewelry. We see this kind of thing all the time." Maria heard one customer ask, "Do you think she really stole it?" "Probably," Victoria replied. "These people often take things from their employers and try to sell them. They think we won't know the difference." Maria stopped walking and turned around. "I am not a thief," she said loudly. "Mrs. Chen trusted me with this necklace, and I would never betray that trust." "Of course you wouldn't," Victoria said sarcastically. "Robert, please make sure she leaves the building." Robert opened the door for Maria. As she walked out, she could hear people inside talking about her. She heard words like suspicious and probably stolen, and what did she expect? Outside on the sidewalk, Maria felt like she could not breathe properly. People walking by stared at her red, tear-filled eyes. She felt ashamed and angry at the same time. She sat down on a bench across the street from the jewelry store. Her hands were still shaking as she took out her phone to call Mrs. Chen. "Hello, dear," Mrs. Chen answered on the second ring. "How did it go at the jewelry store?" Maria tried to keep her voice steady, but she could not hide her upset feelings. "Mrs. Chen, they would not look at the necklace properly. They said it was fake and asked me to leave." "What?" Mrs. Chen sounded shocked. "They wouldn't even examine it? They said it was costume jewelry. They thought—" Maria's voice broke a little. "They thought I had stolen it from you." There was silence on the phone for a moment. Then Mrs. Chen spoke in a voice Maria had never heard before. It was cold and angry. "They accused you of stealing from me?" "Yes," Maria whispered. "They called security and made me leave. Everyone in the store was staring at me." "Oh, my dear girl," Mrs. Chen said softly. "I am so sorry. This is my fault. I should never have sent you there alone." "It's not your fault," Maria said quickly. "They judged me because of how I look." "Because I'm just a maid." "You are not just anything," Mrs. Chen said firmly. "You are a good person who deserves respect. Those people at the store were wrong to treat you that way." Maria wiped her eyes with a tissue. "What should I do now? Should I try another jewelry store?" "No," Mrs. Chen said. "Come home. We'll figure this out together. And Maria, yes, I'm proud of you for trying. Don't let those ignorant people make you feel bad about yourself." As Maria walked back to the bus stop, she looked back at the jewelry store one more time. Through the windows, she could see Victoria and Jennifer laughing with customers, probably telling the story of the maid who tried to fool them. Maria promised herself that someday, somehow, she would prove that she was not what they thought she was. She was honest and trustworthy, and she deserved to be treated with respect. The bus ride home felt much longer than the trip there. Maria sat in the back, still feeling the shame of what had happened. But underneath the shame, there was something else growing. It was anger and determination that this would not be the end of the story. Maria opened the door to her small apartment with tired hands. The day had been long and painful. She still felt the sting of embarrassment from the jewelry store. All she wanted now was to take a hot shower and forget about Victoria Sterling and Jennifer Mills. She hung her purse on the hook by the door and walked to the kitchen. The apartment was quiet and neat. It was not fancy, but it was clean and comfortable. She and her husband David had lived here for 5 years. They could afford a bigger place now, but they both liked their simple life. As she started to make dinner, Maria heard footsteps in the hallway. A key turned in the lock and David walked through the door. He was wearing work clothes, dirty jeans, a simple t-shirt, and heavy boots. His hands were dirty from working on a construction site. "Hey, beautiful," David said with a tired smile. "How was your day?" Maria tried to smile back, but David knew her too well. He could see something was wrong right away. "What happened?" he asked, walking over to her. "You look upset." Maria had planned to tell him about her day, but now that he was here, she felt tears starting again. "Oh, David, I had such a terrible day." David washed his hands quickly and then pulled Maria into a gentle hug. "Tell me what happened." They sat down at their small kitchen table. David held Maria's hands while she told him the whole story. She told him about Mrs. Chen's necklace, about the jewelry store, about Victoria and Jennifer's cruel words, and about being escorted out by security. As Maria talked, David's face changed. At first he looked concerned. Then he looked angry. By the time Maria finished her story, David's jaw was tight and his eyes were cold. "They treated you like a criminal?" David asked quietly. "They said I was trying to scam them with fake jewelry," Maria said. "They thought I had stolen the necklace from Mrs. Chen." David was quiet for a long moment. Maria could see he was thinking hard about something. "Which store was this?" he asked. "Prestigious Diamonds and Company, on 5th Street downtown." David nodded slowly. "And the manager's name was Victoria Sterling?" "Yes, do you know her?" "No," David said. "But I will." Maria looked at her husband carefully. Something in his voice was different. There was a tone she had heard before, but not often. It was the voice he used when he was making important business decisions. Most people who knew David thought he was just a construction worker. He dressed simply, drove an old pickup truck, and lived in a modest apartment. But Maria knew the truth about her husband. David Chen Rodriguez was not just any construction worker. He owned the construction company where he worked. But even that was not the whole truth. 3 years ago, David had sold a technology company he built for over $3 billion. He was one of the richest men in the city. They had met 6 years ago when Maria was working 2 jobs to pay for nursing school. David had been dressed in simple clothes, and Maria thought he was just another student. They fell in love before Maria ever knew about his money. When David finally told her about his wealth, Maria was shocked. But David explained that he wanted to live a normal life. He was tired of people treating him differently because of his money. He wanted a wife who loved him for who he was, not what he owned. They decided together to keep living simply. David still worked in construction because he enjoyed building things with his hands. Maria worked as a maid because she liked helping people. They used their money quietly to help others, but they never showed off their wealth. "David," Maria said carefully, "what are you thinking about?" David looked at his wife's sad face. She was the kindest person he had ever known. She worked hard, treated everyone with respect, and never asked for anything for herself. The idea that someone had humiliated her made him furious. "I'm thinking that some people need to learn a lesson about respect," David said. "What kind of lesson?" David stood up and walked to their bedroom. Maria followed him. She watched as he opened the closet and moved some boxes. Behind the boxes was a small safe. David opened it and took out a folder full of papers. "David, what are you doing?" Maria asked. "Remember when I told you that money is just a tool?" David said, sitting back down. "It can be used to help good people or to teach bad people about consequences." Maria nodded. David had always said that wealth was responsibility, not privilege. Those people at the jewelry store judged you because they thought you were poor. David continued. They treated you badly because they believed poor people don't deserve respect. "That's true," Maria said sadly. "Well, tomorrow they're going to learn that you can't judge people by their appearance," David said with a cold smile. "And they're going to learn that actions have consequences." David opened his laptop and started typing quickly. Maria watched as he searched for information about Prestigious Diamonds and Company. He found their business records, their financial information, and details about the owners. "The store is owned by the Sterling family," David said, reading from the screen. "They've had financial problems lately. The business is worth about $15 million, but they owe $8 million to banks and suppliers." "How do you know all this?" Maria asked. "Public business records," David explained. "When you have money, you learn how to find information about other businesses." David made several phone calls. He spoke to lawyers, accountants, and business advisors. Maria could only hear one side of the conversations, but she could tell David was planning something big. "What are you going to do?" she asked when he finished the calls. "I'm going to buy the store," David said simply. Maria stared at him. "You're going to what?" "I'm going to buy Prestigious Diamonds and Company tomorrow." "But David, that's crazy. You can't buy a whole store just because they were rude to me." David took Maria's hands in his. "Maria, listen to me. Those people didn't just hurt your feelings. They showed that they judge people by their clothes and their jobs. They think poor people are automatically criminals. That kind of thinking is dangerous and wrong. But buying the whole store is the best way to make sure they understand their mistake," David finished. "When someone treats my wife like a criminal, they need to face consequences. Maria felt worried. What will you do to them when you own the store? I'm going to give them a chance to show who they really are, David said. If they can admit they were wrong and treat people better, they might keep their jobs. If they can't, he shrugged. Then they'll learn what it feels like to be judged and dismissed. David worked late into the night, making more phone calls and sending emails. Maria went to bed, but she could not sleep. Her quiet construction worker husband was about to spend millions of dollars because someone had been mean to her. As she lay in bed, Maria thought about the look on Victoria Sterling's face when she realized who Maria really was. Part of her felt excited about getting revenge, but another part of her felt worried about what David was planning. The last thing she heard before falling asleep was David's voice on the phone with someone, saying, "I want to make an offer they can't refuse. Money talks, and tomorrow it's going to say something very important." Maria smiled in the darkness. Victoria Sterling and Jennifer Mills had no idea what was coming for them. They thought they had judged a poor maid correctly. Tomorrow they would learn how wrong they were. David did not sleep much that night. While Maria rested, he sat at his computer learning everything he could about Prestigious Diamonds and Company. His fingers moved quickly across the keyboard as he dug deeper into the business that had humiliated his wife. The Sterling family had owned the jewelry store for 60 years. Victoria's grandfather started it with money from selling his farm. For many years it had been successful and respected, but in recent years things had gone badly. David found financial records that showed the truth. The store was in serious trouble. Victoria's father had made bad investments in a diamond mine that turned out to be worthless. He had borrowed millions of dollars that the store could not pay back. The current value of the store was about $15 million. But they owed $8 million to banks and $3 million to jewelry suppliers. Victoria Sterling was trying to keep the business alive, but she was failing. David also found something else interesting. There were complaints about the store online. Several customers had written angry reviews about how the staff treated them. Many of the complaints were about Victoria Sterling herself. One review said, "Victoria Sterling was incredibly rude to me because I wasn't wearing expensive clothes. She treated me like I didn't belong in her store." Another review said, "The manager made me feel terrible about myself. She looked at me like I was dirt just because I drive an old car." David printed out dozens of these reviews. The pattern was clear. Victoria Sterling had a long history of treating people badly if she thought they were not wealthy. At 3 a.m, David called his private investigator Marcus Webb. Marcus worked only for very wealthy clients who needed information quickly and quietly. "Marcus, it's David Chen. I need you to do something for me today." "Of course, Mr. Chen, what do you need?" "I want you to get the security camera footage from Prestigious Diamonds and Company from yesterday afternoon. My wife was there around 2 o'clock. Is everything all right?" Marcus asked. "She was treated very badly by the staff. I want to see exactly what happened." "I can get that footage by this morning," Marcus promised. "Is there anything else you need to know about this store?" "Everything," David said. "I want to know about their finances, their employees, their customers, their suppliers. I want to know what kind of people run this business." "I'll have a full report by noon," Marcus said. David spent the rest of the night reading about the jewelry business. He learned about how diamond stores operated, what their profit margins were, and how they treated different types of customers. He also researched Victoria Sterling personally. She was 35 years old and had worked at the store since college. She had never married and lived in an expensive apartment that cost more than she could afford on her salary. She drove a luxury car that was leased, not owned. David realized that Victoria Sterling was pretending to be wealthier than she really was. She was probably mean to people she thought were poor because she was insecure about her own financial situation. At 6 a.m, David's lawyer, Robert Kim, called him back. "David, I've been working on this all night," Robert said. "The Sterling family is definitely willing to sell. They're desperate for cash." "How desperate?" David asked. "Very desperate. They have loan payments due next week that they can't make. If they don't get money soon, the bank will take the store away from them." "Perfect," David said. "What's your plan?" "I'll call them this morning and offer $20 million cash," Robert explained. "That's $5 million more than the store is worth, but it will pay off all their debts and give them some money left over." "Will they take it?" "They'd be crazy not to. This offer will save them from bankruptcy." David smiled coldly. "Good. I want this deal finished today." "Are you sure about this, David? $20 million is a lot of money to spend on revenge." This isn't just about revenge, David said. This is about teaching people that actions have consequences. Besides, $20 million is nothing to me, but it's everything to them. At 8 in the morning, Marcus Webb called with an update. Mr. Chen, I have the security footage. Do you want me to bring it to you? Yes, and Marcus, I also want you to find out more about the employees who were rude to my wife. Jennifer Mills and Victoria Sterling. What kind of information? I want to know if they've done this before. I want to know if treating customers badly is normal for them. By 10 in the morning, Marcus arrived at David's apartment with a laptop full of information. Maria had left for work at Mrs. Chen's house, so David was alone. Show me the footage first, David said. Marcus opened the laptop and played the security video from the jewelry store. David watched his wife walk into the store looking nervous but hopeful. He saw her approach Jennifer Mills and politely ask for help. David's hands clenched into fists as he watched Jennifer look at Maria with disgust. He saw his wife unwrap the necklace carefully, treating it like something precious. But Jennifer barely glanced at it before dismissing it as fake. Then Victoria Sterling appeared on the screen. David watched the manager humiliate his wife, accuse her of stealing, and call security. He saw the other customers staring and whispering. He saw Maria's face crumple with embarrassment and pain. By the time the video ended, David was furious. Seeing his wife treated so cruelly made him want to destroy everyone involved. There's more, Marcus said quietly. I talked to some of their former employees. This kind of behavior is normal for Victoria Sterling. Tell me, 3 employees quit in the last year because they couldn't stand how Victoria treated customers. One of them said Victoria told her to get rid of the poor-looking people quickly so they wouldn't bother the real customers. David shook his head in disgust. What about Jennifer Mills? She's been there 2 years. According to the former employees, she learned to be mean from Victoria. She used to be nicer, but Victoria trained her to judge customers by their appearance. So Victoria is the real problem. Yes, but Jennifer has had plenty of chances to be better. She chooses to follow Victoria's example. David's phone rang. It was Robert Kim, his lawyer. David, they accepted the offer, Robert said excitedly. The Sterling family said yes to $20 million. They want to close the deal today. How fast can we do this? I can have all the papers ready by this afternoon. If you wire the money to escrow, we can complete the purchase before the store closes today. David smiled. Do it. I want to own that store before Victoria Sterling goes home tonight. This is really happening, Robert said. You're really going to buy a jewelry store because they were rude to Maria. I'm buying a jewelry store because they need to learn that you can't judge people by how they look, David corrected. And because my wife deserves respect. David spent the rest of the morning making arrangements. He called his bank to wire $20 million. He signed legal papers that Robert brought over. He prepared for the most expensive lesson he had ever given anyone. At noon, Marcus showed him more security footage from the store. This time it was from previous weeks. David watched Victoria Sterling be rude to other customers who didn't look wealthy. He saw her smile and be helpful to people wearing expensive clothes while ignoring or dismissing people in simple outfits. This woman has a pattern, David said to Marcus. She treats people differently based on how much money she thinks they have. The former employees told me she calls it sorting the wheat from the chaff, Marcus replied. She thinks poor people waste her time. Well, today she's going to learn what wasting time really costs, David said. By 2 o'clock in the afternoon, David owned Prestigious Diamonds and Company. The Sterling family had signed away 60 years of family business for $20 million. They were so relieved to pay off their debts that they didn't ask many questions about the buyer. Victoria Sterling had no idea that while she was working in the store, treating customers with the same arrogance she had shown Maria, her entire world was about to change. David put on his best suit and called for his driver. It was time to visit his new jewelry store. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, a black luxury car pulled up in front of Prestigious Diamonds and Company. David stepped out wearing a perfectly tailored dark blue suit, expensive shoes, and a watch that cost more than most people's cars. He looked completely different from the construction worker who had come home dirty and tired the night before. Behind him came 3 other people. Robert Kim, his lawyer, carried a briefcase full of legal documents. Marcus Webb, his private investigator, had a folder of evidence. Sarah Martinez, his business manager, had a tablet with financial information about the store. David looked through the windows of the jewelry store. Inside, he could see Victoria Sterling helping a well-dressed customer, smiling and being charming. Jennifer Mills was organizing jewelry displays, looking bored. Neither of them had any idea that their lives were about to change completely. "Are you ready for this, David?" Robert asked. "I've been ready since last night," David replied. "Let's go introduce ourselves to the staff." David pushed open the door to the store. The same bell that had announced Maria's arrival yesterday now announced the arrival of the store's new owner, Victoria. Sterling looked up from her customer and noticed the group of well-dressed people entering her store. Her face immediately changed to the smile she used for wealthy customers. "Good afternoon," Victoria said in her sweetest voice. "Welcome to prestigious Diamonds and Company. How may I help you today?" David walked slowly around the store, looking at the displays of jewelry. He took his time, making Victoria wait. She followed him with her eyes, trying to figure out what these important-looking people wanted. "This is a beautiful store," David said finally. "Very impressive." "Thank you," Victoria beamed. "We've been serving discerning customers for 60 years. Are you looking for something special today?" "Actually, yes," David said. "I'm looking for the manager." "Victoria Sterling, I believe?" "That's me," Victoria said proudly. "Victoria Sterling, store manager." "And you are?" "David Chen Rodriguez," David said, watching Victoria's face carefully. "And as of about an hour ago, I'm the new owner of this store." Victoria's smile froze on her face. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" "I said I'm the new owner," David repeated calmly. "I bought this store from your family this morning." "The sale is complete." Victoria stared at him in confusion. "That's impossible. My family would never sell the store. This business has been in our family for 60 years. Robert Kim stepped forward and opened his briefcase. He pulled out a thick stack of legal papers. "These are the signed purchase documents," he said. "Your family accepted Mr. Chen Rodriguez's offer of $20 million this morning." Victoria grabbed the papers with shaking hands. She read them quickly, her face getting paler with each page. Jennifer Mills and the other employees had stopped what they were doing to listen. "This can't be real," Victoria whispered. $20 million? Why would anyone pay $20 million for this store? "Because I wanted to own it," David said simply. "And when I want something, I'm willing to pay for it." Victoria looked up from the papers, still in shock. "But why? You don't know anything about our business. Why would you buy a jewelry store?" David smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "Actually, I know quite a lot about your business. I spent all night learning about it. I know about your financial problems. I know about your debts, and I know about how you treat your customers." Something in David's voice made Victoria nervous. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I know exactly what kind of person you are, Mrs. Sterling," David said coldly. "And I know exactly what happened in this store yesterday afternoon." Victoria's face went completely white. "Yesterday afternoon?" "Yes. Yesterday afternoon when you humiliated a woman who came here asking for help with a necklace appraisal." Victoria's mouth opened, but no words came out. Jennifer Mills took a step backward, suddenly understanding what was happening. "You remember, don't you?" David continued. "A woman in simple clothes brought in an old necklace. You decided she was a thief without even looking at the jewelry properly. You called security and had her thrown out." That woman was trying to scam us," Victoria stammered. "The jewelry was obviously fake." David laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Was it? Did you actually examine it? Did you use any of your professional tools to test the stones?" "I could tell just by looking at it," Victoria said weakly. "Could you?" David asked. "Or did you just see a woman in inexpensive clothes and decide she didn't deserve your respect?" Victoria realized she was in serious trouble, but she didn't understand how serious yet. "Sir, if we made a mistake, I apologize. But we see a lot of people trying to sell fake jewelry." "A mistake?" David's voice became dangerously quiet. "You think this was just a mistake?" Sarah Martinez stepped forward with her tablet. "Ms. Sterling, we have security footage from yesterday." "Would you like to see it?" Victoria shook her head quickly. "That's not necessary." "Oh, but I think it is," David said. Sarah turned the tablet around so everyone in the store could see the screen. She pressed play. The video showed Maria entering the store looking nervous but hopeful. It showed her polite request for help. It showed Jennifer's dismissive attitude and Victoria's cruel accusations. It showed the humiliation and the escort by security. Other customers in the store watched the video with shocked faces. They could see how badly the staff had treated Maria, and it made them uncomfortable. When the video ended, David looked directly at Victoria. "That woman you humiliated is my wife." Victoria's legs nearly gave out. She grabbed the counter to steady herself. "Your wife?" "My wife Maria," David said. "The woman you accused of being a thief. The woman you threw out of your store like she was garbage." Jennifer Mills suddenly understood why this man had bought the store. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Maria is one of the kindest, most honest people I've ever known," David continued. "She works as a maid because she likes helping people. She brought that necklace here because an elderly woman trusted her with it, and you treated her like a criminal." Victoria tried to speak, but David held up his hand to stop her. "Do you want to know about that necklace you dismissed so quickly?" David asked. "The one you said was obviously fake?" Victoria nodded weakly. "It contained genuine Burmese rubies over 200 years old. The necklace is worth approximately $2.1 million. The sound Victoria made was somewhere between a gasp and a moan. Jennifer Mills sat down heavily in a chair, her face in her hands. $2.1 million, David repeated. "That's what you dismissed without even using a jeweler's loupe to examine it properly." How do you know that?" Victoria asked in a tiny voice. "Because after my wife came home crying yesterday, I had it properly appraised by 3 different experts," David said. "They all agreed on the value." David walked closer to Victoria. "You didn't just hurt my wife's feelings. You showed me exactly what kind of people you are. You judge customers by their clothes, not by their character. You think poor people don't deserve respect? That's not true," Victoria protested weakly. Marcus Webb opened his folder and pulled out printed pages. "We have complaints from dozens of customers over the past 3 years. All of them say the same thing, that you treat people differently based on how much money you think they have." David took the complaints and read one out loud. "Victoria Sterling made me feel like dirt because I wasn't wearing designer clothes. She acted like I didn't belong in her store." Sound familiar? Victoria was crying now, but David wasn't finished. Here's another one. "The manager looked at me like I was trying to steal something, just because I drive an old car." And another. "Victoria Sterling was incredibly rude and dismissive because she thought I couldn't afford anything expensive." David dropped the papers on the counter. "This isn't about one bad day," fizzed Sterling. "This is about a pattern of treating people badly based on your assumptions about their wealth." The store was completely quiet, except for Victoria's quiet crying. The customers who had been shopping looked uncomfortable and started to leave. "So here's what's going to happen," David announced. "This store now belongs to me, and it's going to operate according to my values, not yours." Victoria looked up at him with red, frightened eyes. "Are you going to fire us?" "That depends," David said. "It depends on whether you can learn to treat all customers with respect, regardless of how they look or how much money you think they have." David turned to address all the employees in the store. "Tomorrow morning, I want to see everyone in this store at 9 o'clock. We're going to have a meeting about how things are going to change around here." He looked back at Victoria. "And Ms. Sterling? I suggest you spend tonight thinking very carefully about the kind of person you want to be. Because tomorrow you're going to have to prove that you deserve to keep working in my store." David turned and walked toward the door, followed by his team. As he reached the exit, he turned back one more time. "Oh, and Mrs. Sterling, my wife will be coming in tomorrow morning too. I think you owe her an apology." The next morning, David arrived at Prestigious Diamonds & Company at 8:30. He wanted to be there before any of the employees came in. He had spent the night planning exactly what he was going to say and do. Maria walked beside him wearing a simple but nice dress. She felt nervous about returning to the store where she had been humiliated. But David had convinced her that she needed to be there to see how people reacted when they learned the truth. "Are you sure about this?" Maria asked as they stood outside the store. "I'm sure," David said, squeezing her hand. "These people need to understand that their actions have consequences. And you deserve to hear them apologize properly." David unlocked the door. He was the owner now, after all. And they went inside. The store looked the same as yesterday, but everything was different. Now it belonged to David, and it would operate according to his values. At exactly 9 o'clock, the employees began arriving. Victoria Sterling came in first, looking like she had not slept at all. Her eyes were red and puffy, and her hands shook as she unlocked her register. Jennifer Mills arrived a few minutes later. She looked scared and kept glancing at David and Maria nervously. The other employees, Diana Walsh, Michael Torres, and Robert the security guard, came in looking confused. They had heard rumors about what happened yesterday, but they weren't sure what to believe. David stood in the center of the store and waited for everyone to gather around him. Maria stood beside him, and he could feel her nervous energy. "Good morning, everyone," David said in a calm, professional voice. "As you all know by now, I am David Chen Rodriguez, and I am the new owner of this store." The employees nodded, still looking uncertain about what was happening. "I want to start by explaining why I bought this store," David continued. 2 days ago, my wife Maria came here with a necklace that needed to be appraised. She was treated very badly by some members of your staff. David gestured toward Maria. "This is my wife, Maria Rodriguez. Some of you met her before, although you may not remember her kindly." Victoria Sterling could not look at Maria. She stared at the floor, her face red with shame. Maria came here as a representative of her employer, an elderly woman who trusted her with a valuable family heirloom, David explained. Instead of receiving professional service, Maria was accused of theft, humiliated in front of other customers, and escorted out by security. Jennifer Mills started crying quietly. Michael Torres and Diana Walsh looked shocked. They had not worked yesterday and were hearing about this for the first time. "The reason this happened," David continued, "is because some people in this store judge customers based on their appearance, rather than treating everyone with respect." David walked over to the security camera monitor and turned it so everyone could see. "I want everyone to watch something." He played the video from 2 days ago. The employees watched in silence as they saw Maria enter the store hopefully, ask politely for help, and then get treated with contempt and suspicion. When the video ended, the store was completely quiet. Diana Walsh looked angry. Michael Torres shook his head in disgust. Even Robert the security guard looked uncomfortable about his role in escorting Maria out. "This is not acceptable," David said firmly. "In my store, every customer will be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of their appearance, their clothes, or how much money we think they have." David turned to face Victoria Sterling directly. "Ms. Sterling, you are the manager of this store. The way employees treat customers is your responsibility. What do you have to say about what happened?" Victoria looked up with tears in her eyes. But when she spoke, her words showed she still didn't understand the real problem. "Mr. Chen Rodriguez, I want to keep my job," Victoria said desperately. "I'll do whatever you want. I'll treat your wife better if she comes back. I promise I won't make the same mistake again." David frowned. "Ms. Sterling, do you think this is about treating my wife specially because she's married to me?" "Isn't it?" Victoria asked, confused. "No," David said firmly. "This is about treating all customers with respect. My wife shouldn't get good service because she's married to a wealthy man. She should get good service because she's a human being who deserves respect." Victoria looked even more confused. But she was dressed like what?" David asked dangerously. "Like she didn't have money," Victoria finished quietly. "And that's exactly the problem," David said. "You think people who don't have money don't deserve respect. You think poor people are automatically criminals or liars." David walked closer to Victoria. "Ms. Sterling, I want you to apologize to my wife. But I want you to apologize for the right reasons. Not because you want to keep your job, but because you understand that what you did was wrong." Victoria looked at Maria, then back at David. I'm sorry your wife got upset. I didn't mean to hurt her feelings." David shook his head. "That's not good enough. Try again." Victoria tried again. "I'm sorry I accused your wife of stealing. I should have trusted that she was telling the truth about her employer." "Still not good enough," David said. "You're still missing the point." Victoria looked frustrated and scared. "I don't understand what you want me to say." "I want you to understand that you were wrong to judge my wife based on her appearance," David explained patiently. "I want you to understand that every person who comes into this store deserves to be treated with respect, whether they're wearing designer clothes or work clothes." Victoria stared at him. "But how are we supposed to know who can afford our jewelry?" "You're not supposed to know," David said. "You're supposed to help everyone equally and let them decide what they can afford." David turned to address all the employees. "Let me be very clear about how this store will operate from now on. Every customer who walks through that door will be greeted politely and offered assistance. No one will be judged by their clothes, their car, or any assumptions about their wealth." Diana Walsh raised her hand. "Mr. Chen Rodriguez, I want to say something." Go ahead, Diana. I wasn't working the day your wife came in, but I want to apologize anyway, Diana said. I've seen how some customers get treated differently here, and I should have spoken up about it before. David nodded approvingly. Thank you, Diana, that takes courage. Michael Torres also spoke up. Sir, I'm sorry too. I've noticed the different treatment and I was wrong not to say anything. David was pleased to see that some employees understood the real issue, but he still needed to deal with Victoria and Jennifer. Ms. Mills, David said, turning to Jennifer. What do you have to say? Jennifer had been crying during the entire meeting. When David spoke to her, she broke down completely. I'm so sorry, Jennifer sobbed. I was terrible to you. I judged you without knowing anything about you. I thought because you were dressed simply that you were trying to trick us. But that was wrong. It was completely wrong. Jennifer looked directly at Maria. You were polite and respectful to me, and I was cruel to you. I don't have any excuse for that. I'm ashamed of how I acted. Maria could see that Jennifer's apology was genuine. The young woman really understood what she had done wrong. I accept your apology, Maria said quietly. David was satisfied with Jennifer's response. She understood the real problem and seemed genuinely sorry. But Victoria was still missing the point. Ms. Sterling, David said, do you understand why Ms. Mills's apology was better than yours? Victoria looked confused. Because she cried more. David sighed. No. Because she understood that she was wrong to judge my wife based on her appearance. She understood that treating people differently because of how they look is wrong. David could see that Victoria still didn't really understand. She was sorry she had caused trouble for herself, but she wasn't sorry about her attitude toward people she considered beneath her. Ms. Sterling, I'm going to give you one more chance, David said. I want you to think very carefully and tell me what you did wrong. Victoria thought for a long moment. When she spoke, it was clear she was trying to say what she thought David wanted to hear. I did wrong by not examining the necklace properly, Victoria said. I should have used professional tools to test it before deciding it was fake. David shook his head sadly. Ms. Sterling, you're still missing the point completely. Victoria looked desperate. Then tell me what you want me to say. I can't tell you what to say, David replied. I need you to understand it yourself. And clearly you don't. David had made his decision. Victoria Sterling would never truly understand what she had done wrong. She would only pretend to be better to keep her job. Ms. Sterling, you're fired, David said calmly. Victoria's face went white. Please, I need this job. I'll do anything you want. The problem is that you don't understand what I want, David explained. I want employees who respect all customers because it's the right thing to do, not because their boss tells them to. David turned to Jennifer. Ms. Mills, you clearly understand what you did wrong and your apology was genuine. You can keep your job, but you'll be starting over as a junior associate. You'll need to prove that you've really changed. Jennifer nodded through her tears. Thank you. I won't let you down. David looked at the rest of the staff. Diana, Michael, Robert, you'll all keep your jobs. Diana, I'm promoting you to store manager. Diana looked shocked. Sir, I've only worked here for 6 months. 1 week after Victoria Sterling was fired, the news about what happened at Prestigious Diamonds and Company spread quickly through the city. The story of the maid who was humiliated and whose husband bought the store became the talk of social media and local news. Victoria sat in her expensive apartment, looking at her bank account on her laptop screen. The numbers were scary. Without her $80,000 salary from the jewelry store, she could not afford her rent, her car payments, or her credit card bills. She had spent the week looking for another job, but word traveled fast in the luxury retail world. Other jewelry stores and expensive shops had heard about what happened. Store managers talked to each other, and Victoria's reputation was ruined. At Cartier, the manager told her, "We heard about the incident at Prestigious Diamonds. We can't hire someone who treats customers that way." At Tiffany and Company, the response was similar. "Your approach to customer service doesn't match our values." Even smaller jewelry stores turned her away. "We've seen the security footage online," one manager said. "We can't risk having someone like you representing our business." Victoria realized that her career in luxury retail was over. The way she had treated Maria had cost her everything she had worked for. She would have to find a completely different type of job, probably making much less money. Meanwhile, Jennifer Mills was working hard to prove that she had really changed. David had demoted her to junior associate, which meant her pay was cut from $45,000 to $35,000 per year. But Jennifer was grateful to still have a job. Every day, Jennifer made sure to greet every customer warmly, regardless of how they were dressed. When elderly customers came in wearing simple clothes, she helped them patiently. When young people in casual outfits browsed the jewelry, she offered assistance without judgment. Diana Walsh had taken over as store manager and was implementing the changes David wanted. She created new training programs for all employees about treating customers with respect. She put up signs around the store that said, "Every customer matters and respect for all." Diana also changed the store's policies. Before, employees were encouraged to focus on customers who looked wealthy. Now, employees were required to help customers in the order they arrived, regardless of appearance. The changes were working. Customer reviews on social media started to improve dramatically. One review said, "I visited this store wearing jeans and a t-shirt, and the staff treated me like royalty. They didn't judge me at all and helped me find the perfect engagement ring." Another review said, "The new management at Prestigious Diamonds is amazing. They make everyone feel welcome no matter what you're wearing or driving." But not everyone was happy about the changes. Some wealthy customers complained that they weren't getting special treatment anymore. A well-dressed woman named Patricia Monroe came into the store expecting to be treated like a VIP. When she had to wait in line like everyone else, she became angry. "Don't you know who I am?" Patricia demanded when Diana asked her to wait her turn. "I spend thousands of dollars here every year." "Of course, Mrs. Monroe," Diana replied politely. "We appreciate your business very much, but we serve all our customers in the order they arrive. It will just be a few more minutes." Patricia stormed out of the store saying she would never come back. But 3 new customers came in that same day because they had heard about the store's new reputation for treating everyone fairly. David visited the store every few days to see how things were going. He was pleased with the changes Diana had made. The atmosphere in the store was completely different now. During one visit, David watched as Jennifer helped an elderly man who was looking for a gift for his wife's birthday. The man was wearing old clothes and seemed worried about the cost. "I don't have much money," the man told Jennifer, "but I want to get something nice for my wife. We've been married 50 years. Jennifer smiled warmly. "Let me show you some beautiful options that won't break your budget," she said. Love is what makes jewelry special, not the price. David was impressed. Jennifer had learned her lesson completely. She was treating this customer with the same respect she would show anyone. The elderly man ended up buying a simple but elegant necklace for $200. As Jennifer wrapped it up, she told him, "Your wife is going to love this. 50 years of marriage is something to celebrate." After the man left, David approached Jennifer. "That was excellent customer service," he told her. Jennifer smiled. "Thank you, Mr. Chen Rodriguez. I've learned that every customer has a story worth respecting." "That's exactly right," David said. "You've really changed, Jennifer. I'm proud of your progress." Jennifer's eyes filled with happy tears. "I was so ashamed of how I treated your wife. I never want to make someone feel that way again." David decided that Jennifer deserved a reward for her improvement. "I'm giving you a promotion," he announced. "You're now a senior associate with a raise back to your original salary." Jennifer was so grateful she almost cried. "Thank you so much. I won't let you down." Meanwhile, Victoria Sterling was learning what it felt like to be judged by her appearance. She had been forced to move to a smaller, cheaper apartment. She could no longer afford her luxury car and had to buy an old used car instead. When Victoria went job hunting, she couldn't afford to buy new interview clothes. She had to wear older outfits that were no longer fashionable. For the first time in her life, she experienced what it was like to be dismissed because of how she looked. At a department store, the hiring manager barely glanced at her resume. "We're looking for someone with a more current image," the manager said, looking at Victoria's outdated outfit. At a restaurant, the owner said, "You don't look like you fit with our upscale clientele." Victoria finally understood how Maria must have felt that day in the jewelry store. Being judged by appearance was painful and humiliating. But for Victoria, this understanding came too late. She eventually found a job at a small discount store making minimum wage. The work was hard and the pay was low. Every day she regretted how she had treated Maria and the other customers she had dismissed over the years. One day, Victoria decided to write a letter to David and Maria. She knew it wouldn't change anything, but she needed to try. "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Chen Rodriguez," she wrote, "I know my apology is too late, but I want you to know that I finally understand what I did wrong. Losing my job and experiencing judgment myself has taught me what I should have learned years ago. Everyone deserves to be treated with respect, regardless of their appearance or social status. I am truly sorry for the pain I caused." David read the letter but didn't respond. He was glad that Victoria had finally learned her lesson, but consequences couldn't be undone just because someone was sorry. Back at the jewelry store, business was better than ever. The store's new reputation for treating all customers with respect had attracted many new clients. People came from across the city because they knew they would be welcomed warmly. Maria visited the store occasionally and was always impressed by the changes. The staff members who had been kind to her from the beginning were thriving under the new management. The ones who had treated her badly were either gone or had completely changed their attitudes. One day, Mrs. Chen came to the store with Maria to see where her grandmother's necklace had been appraised. Diana Walsh personally showed them around, treating the elderly woman with the same respect she would show any customer. "This is how a jewelry store should operate," Mrs. Chen told Maria. "Everyone should feel welcome here." Maria smiled, remembering how different her first visit had been. David's decision to buy the store had created consequences that reached far beyond just punishing bad behavior. He had created a place where everyone was treated with dignity. The story of Prestigious Diamonds and Company became an example for other businesses in the city. The lesson was clear: how you treat people matters, and there are always consequences for your actions, both good and bad. Victoria Sterling learned this lesson the hard way, but she learned it. Jennifer Mills learned it too and became a better person because of it. The store became a place of respect and kindness, exactly as David had intended. Justice had been served, but more importantly, positive change had been created that would last long into the future. 6 months later, Prestigious Diamonds and Company had become completely transformed. The store that once judged customers by their appearance was now known throughout the city as the most welcoming jewelry store. Maria walked through the front door on a sunny Tuesday morning, carrying a cup of coffee and wearing her simple work clothes. She was on her way to Mrs. Chen's house but wanted to visit the store first. "Good morning, Mrs. Rodriguez," called Diana Walsh from behind the counter. "How are you today?" "I'm wonderful, thank you," Maria replied with a smile. "How is business?" "Better than ever," Diana said proudly. "We had our best month in the store's history last month. Word has spread about how we treat customers, and people are coming from all over the city." Maria looked around the store and noticed several customers browsing the jewelry displays. A young couple in casual clothes was looking at engagement rings. An elderly woman in a simple dress was examining necklaces. A businessman in an expensive suit was selecting a watch. What impressed Maria most was that all 3 customers were receiving the same level of attention and respect from the staff. Jennifer Mills was helping the young couple, speaking to them with patience and enthusiasm. Michael Torres was showing the elderly woman different necklace options, treating her like she was the most important customer in the world. This was exactly what David had wanted to achieve. Everyone was being treated equally, regardless of their appearance or assumed wealth. "Mrs. Rodriguez," Jennifer called out, walking over with a bright smile. "I'm so happy to see you." In the 6 months since the confrontation, Jennifer had completely changed. She had learned to see beyond people's clothes and cars to recognize their humanity and dignity. She had become one of the store's most popular employees because of her genuine kindness. "How are you doing, Jennifer?" Maria asked. "I'm doing great," Jennifer replied. "Mr. Chen Rodriguez promoted me to senior associate last month. But more importantly, I love my job now. I love making people feel special when they come in here." Maria was pleased to see how much Jennifer had grown. The young woman who had once dismissed her as a potential thief was now one of the most respectful and caring employees in the store. "I wanted to tell you something," Jennifer continued. "Yesterday, a woman came in wearing old clothes and carrying a worn purse. 2 years ago, I would have ignored her or treated her badly, but instead I helped her find a beautiful bracelet for her daughter's graduation. She told me it was the first jewelry she had ever been able to afford, and she cried with happiness when I wrapped it up for her." Maria felt touched by the story. "That's wonderful, Jennifer." "It felt so much better to make someone happy than to make them feel bad," Jennifer said. "I understand now why treating people with respect is so important." While they were talking, David entered the store. He was wearing his construction clothes because he had come straight from a job site. Some customers might have been surprised to see the wealthy owner of an upscale jewelry store dressed like a worker. But David had never cared about such things. "Hi, beautiful," David said to Maria, giving her a quick kiss on the cheek. "Hi yourself," Maria replied. "I was just hearing about how well the store is doing." David looked around with satisfaction. The transformation had exceeded even his expectations. Not only were employees treating customers better, but the store's financial performance had improved dramatically. Sales had increased by 40% in 6 months. Customer satisfaction ratings were at an all-time high. The store had received dozens of positive reviews online, and many customers specifically mentioned how respected and welcomed they felt. "Diana, can you show me the latest sales figures?" David asked. Diana pulled out a tablet and showed him the numbers. "We're on track to have our best year ever," she reported. "And our customer return rate has increased by 60%. People come back because they know they'll be treated well." David nodded approvingly. "What about employee satisfaction?" "Everyone loves working here now," Diana said. "The atmosphere is so much more positive. When employees feel good about how they treat customers, they feel good about their jobs." This had been an unexpected benefit of the changes. When employees were required to treat all customers with respect, they felt better about themselves and their work. The store had become a happier place for everyone. Mrs. Chen entered the store moving slowly with her walking cane. She had become a regular customer since the transformation began. Maria hurried over to help her. "Good morning, Mrs. Chen," Maria said. "How are you feeling today?" "Much better, dear," the elderly woman replied. "I wanted to come in and see my necklace." After David had the necklace properly appraised and learned it was worth over $2 million, Mrs. Chen had decided to donate it to a museum. But first, she had wanted to give Maria one of the smaller pieces from the same jewelry set, a beautiful ruby pendant worth about $50,000. "I can't accept something so valuable," Maria had protested when Mrs. Chen first offered the gift. "Nonsense," Mrs. Chen had replied. "You protected my grandmother's necklace when no one else would take it seriously. You deserve to have something beautiful." Now the pendant was displayed in a special case in the store, with a small plaque that told the story of how Maria had been trusted with the valuable necklace and how she had protected it despite being treated badly. Many customers read the story and were impressed by Maria's integrity and David's response to her mistreatment. The story had become part of the store's reputation for valuing character over appearance. "Mrs. Chen," Diana said warmly, "would you like to see your necklace?" "Yes, please," Mrs. Chen replied. Diana brought out the famous necklace, now properly displayed in a custom case. The ancient Burmese rubies sparkled under the store's lights, showing their true beauty for the first time in decades. "To think that Victoria Sterling dismissed this as fake jewelry," Mrs. Chen said, shaking her head. "She lost her job over a $2 million mistake." "She lost her job because of how she treated people," David corrected gently. "The money was never the real issue," Mrs. Chen nodded wisely. "You're right, of course. Respect is worth more than money." As they were talking, a family entered the store. The parents were wearing simple clothes, and their teenage daughter looked nervous. They had clearly saved money for this visit and were worried about being judged. Jennifer immediately approached them with a warm smile. "Good morning. Welcome to Prestigious Diamonds. How can I help you today?" "Our daughter just graduated from high school," the father explained. "We wanted to get her a special piece of jewelry to celebrate." "That's wonderful," Jennifer said enthusiastically. "Graduation is such an important milestone. Let me show you some beautiful options in different price ranges." Maria watched as Jennifer treated the family with the same respect and attention she would give to any customer. The teenager's nervousness disappeared as Jennifer made her feel special and valued. "You know what I like most about the changes here?" Mrs. Chen asked Maria quietly. "What's that?" "Everyone who works here seems genuinely happy now," Mrs. Chen observed. "When people feel good about how they treat others, it shows in everything they do." This was true. The employees at Prestigious Diamonds had discovered that treating customers with respect and kindness made their own jobs more rewarding. They looked forward to coming to work because they knew they would make people feel good about themselves. The store had also become a model for other businesses in the city. Other jewelry stores and luxury shops had started training their employees to treat all customers equally. David's approach had inspired positive changes throughout the retail community. Mr. Chen Rodriguez, Diana called out. There's a reporter here who wants to interview you about the store's transformation. David shook his head. I don't want to do interviews. The story isn't about me, it's about treating people with respect. But the story had already spread far beyond the city. News outlets across the country had reported on the maid who was humiliated and whose husband bought the store to teach a lesson about dignity and respect. The story had inspired other wealthy people to use their resources to fight discrimination and promote equality. It had shown that money could be used not just for personal gain, but to create positive change in society. Victoria Sterling had eventually found her way back to a better path. After months of struggling with low-paying jobs and experiencing discrimination herself, she had written a heartfelt letter to David asking if she could volunteer at the store to learn how to treat customers properly. David had agreed to let her volunteer for 2 hours each week, not as an employee but as someone learning to be a better person. Victoria now helped with simple tasks and watched how the other employees treated customers with respect. I was so wrong about everything, Victoria had told Diana during one of her volunteer sessions. I thought being mean to people who looked poor made me look important, but it just made me ugly inside. Victoria was slowly rebuilding her life and her character. She had found a job at a small family-owned jewelry store, where the owners valued kindness over sales numbers. Her pay was much less than before, but she was becoming a better person. As the afternoon continued, Maria watched the steady flow of customers through the store. Each person was greeted warmly and treated with respect.